Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back. It is the start of a new week, 2 new projects, and this week we are going to delve head deep into 3D printing models made from 3D printed things. One organic, one very mechanical in nature, and I will try to highlight pluses and minuses of both. I can only, and that's my disclaimer at the top, timeout. I can only explain my experiences. I have a depth of knowledge that is about that deep. So I may spout completely wrong things, but believe me, it's not intentional. So if I say something that is wrong, or I give out a wrong setting, or I am wrong in my thinking, please feel free to post it in the comments below. I can only tell you how I've been doing things, and if that's not been correct, then please correct me, because I'm not too old to learn something new. Just don't hit me all at once with a bunch of math. But let's get started. Here are our 2 projects for the week. One is organic, one is mechanical. The organic one is the Facehugger. Now, I listened to a lot of people's suggestions about the best way to display this. Running out of space, so compact is the key word. And believe me, this took a couple of tries over the weekend to get this tail right, because one of the weaknesses is, even though this is significantly pinned with metal, it was not holding up the weight. It was drooping and slopping over to the side and all of that. So this is like tail version 3 as far as breaking it apart and re-gluing it. Plus, I covered it with epoxy sculpt, and a large portion of it down here. This is a question of using the pieces as printed as bone structure, and then putting a skin of epoxy clay over top of it. Now, the arms, fingers, hands, legs, whatever you want to call them, are not glued. I mean, they're posed out to the 3 joints, but they're not posed on the body yet. I have yet to do that. I figured it was easier to do the sculpting that I needed to do on the individual legs, arms, fingers, whatever, before I attached them to the body. So what I have decided to do is, as far as the display, is make up something that, well, see, I'm remembering the old Jack-in-the-Box picture, and it was I think it was one of the original Geiger illustrations in the making of Alien that showed the Jack-in-the-Box nature of the Facehugger in the egg. And of course we have no egg here, but we do have a coiled tail, a spring-loaded Facehugger, and I'm trying to get it all in picture because it takes up an amount of space. But what I'm going to do is just make up, like, since I've got some more of this stuff left, this lighting grid from a fluorescent fixture, I'm just going to make up like a piece of corridor with using that as the floor, and we'll get into that later. But what I'd like to do now is, or today, is to get these guys in their final pose, and then once they're locked in, I can finish with the epoxy sculpt and sculpt in those last joints. You can see here, well, maybe you can if I show you, where I have smoothed over the joints with some epoxy sculpt over the weekend, and got those ready. But I need to do the same thing here. Once I get that locked in place, I can just putty in and around that and hold it where I want it to be, hold that shape. Okay, I've got the arms locked in a suitably creepy position. I've got the CA on there and hit it with a little Zatsu kicker, and the smoke started coming off of it, which lets you know it's working. I've never seen so much smoke come off of CA before. It's something, especially like this, with some weight on it. Basically what I did is I just put some of the really thin CA in there and held it in position and hit the joint with the kicker and gave it a couple seconds, and smoke started coming off of it. So that's how I knew I had enough in there, and I just kept the cloth down here for any errant drips. Okay, so here is exhibit number 1, or exhibit A, in the argument against the 3D printed resin pieces for the use in flat, just flat shapes. This is the interior floor. Beautiful, thick piece, wonderfully smooth, but it is warped. As you can tell when I do this, it's bowed. It's not flat anymore. It's gone belly shaped. Now I don't know whether this was a fault in me the way it was printed or not, but I'll tell you the truth, I don't care. Well, I do care. This is supposed to be a learning thing, but what I'm going to do is trace this off because it's got no dimension. I mean, it's got no features on it. I could trace this off and scratch build that out of sheet stock, and it will serve the purpose exactly as I need it to, because like I said, there is no, as long as I trace off these dimensions, I'm good. There is no reason for this. If you think about it critically, there was no reason to print this. I could have just gotten away with there's nothing unique about it other than it's the outlying shape. So I think what I'm going to do is, rather than reprint this, which could be easily reprinted since it's flat, it would take virtually no time to print, or no time in the realm of other 3D printed things that sometimes take days to print. This prints in less than 2 hours, I think. But I think I'm going to get happier results if I just ditch it and scratch build it. Okay, well, a huge portion of the pod pieces are out on the back deck enjoying their first good plastering of filler primer. I'll take a moment to work on some of these other parts that are inside, and I've come to the realization that let me impart a little bit of wisdom to you. We've all built, at least I hope we all have built, resin kits in the past, garage kits. Excuse me. And you all know, if you have done that, that they can vary in quality dramatically. Not all resin kits are created equal. Some manufacturers, garage kit builders, have better reputations than others. Some use better resins than others. Some have better molds than others. Some have parts that fit together better than others. And I feel like we're back into those days now, because I'm finding flaws right, left, and center in this pod kit. And I can't say that it's all down to me, and I can't say that it's all down to the creator of this kit. But I would say that, all things being equal, this is not one of the better kits. That is not to say it couldn't be made better, but I don't have that knowledge, so therefore I should just shut up and build the kit. Were I to have the ear of the person who built this kit, I would suggest many, many things to make it different. But here's a prime example. The Kirk figure is what I would call a low polygon figure. You can see a lot of the facets here in all of these shapes, and this is probably the 5th or 6th time I've gotten the figure, and this is the first one I've got to completely turn out all the parts, even down to, well, 5 of the fingers on one hand and maybe 2 of the fingers. He's giving a rather rude gesture at this point. And this model maker has not learned, or the person who created this file has not learned the lesson that G.I. Joe taught us 60 years ago. You make the hand into a mitt. so that you don't have splayed out fingers like that. Who in their right mind is going to make a model with splayed out fingers at this scale? Action figures don't have it. Models don't have it. This was the best Scotty I could get to print out, and the hands just completely gave up. Well, I can sculpt new hands because I'm going to make mitt-shaped hands. Things like that. This was designed by somebody who wanted to get this particular subject out into the world, but may not be all that savvy in the practices that make for a good injected model. Now, this is not the quality of a styrene model. I couldn't tell you that I even expected that. But this takes me back to the days of the early resin kits, where you had wavy walls and you had joints that didn't quite line up, and you had shapes that you had to fill divots in and air bubbles and all that, which is kind of where my mind was to start with. Now, it would be unfair to gauge all resin downloadable resin kits on this one example. I want to go out. There's another kit I'm interested in purchasing and downloading and printing, and it looks to be from, let's say, a higher end product than this. And then if I print that out, use all of my same procedures, all of my same methods, all of my same materials, if I don't get any better results with that than I do with this, then I know that it's the entire subject. It's the entire resin kit, printing resin models. But I'm perfectly willing to believe that all resin models are not, or all resin downloadable files are not created equal. And I got to tell you, and I have to tell the gentleman who made this, that with the advent of the 4K printers that are out and the higher res printers, he's going to need to up his game. It's sort of like how you would remaster a movie for 4K. Some of these files are going to need to be remastered for higher resolution, because if I'm seeing all of these facets and all of these flat planes and the low poly counts and all that at the resolution that I'm printing at, they're really going to be noticeable when you print it at an even higher resolution. And I can't tell you whether what I'm printing is a bad result or whether it is the excellent reproduction of a bad file. I don't know how you can better make that distinction, but I could be doing everything right, doing all of my settings, all of my supports and everything perfect, but if the file underneath it all, if the file is of a low poly count, or they've made some structural errors in their files, that's going to show up whether I've printed it on a 29-cent printer or a $3,000 printer. So it's kind of like if you're making a styrene kit, we all know what the standard for styrene kits is. So once that standard, you can gauge it. Okay, is this up to that standard or not? This is such a new area, such a wild west frontier, that I can't place all the blame on me, or all the blame on the kit, or all the blame on the files, or all the blame on the technology. There are too many things up in the air. So that's what makes this an experiment. And I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I've just got to get these thoughts out as they occur to me. Okay, well, the other thing is out getting its many coats of filler primer and drying in the sun, which is out today, thank the maker. Getting back to the Facehugger, and I'm going to start filling in the joints around the end of the fingers, and I'm using weapon of choice is epoxy sculpt. There's any number of things you could use. You could use spot putty and Bondo, but you can't really tool this. I've got some big gaps to fill. You could use the 2-part plumber's putty, or 2-part epoxy putty that you can buy in the little tubes, and then you cut it up and knead it and use that, and I do use all of that because that sets up particularly quick, but it just gets all over your fingers and you can't clean it off very well. To me, the weapon of choice is Epoxy Sculpt, and I am desperately hoping, well, see, this was, I was desperately hoping, the problem with not having a Wonderfest this year was I couldn't get replenished. I always, stop by their booth at Wonderfest and restock, but I am starting to run low on the Epoxy Sculpt, and I never have ordered it online, but I may have to, because I don't think I can last until next summer for Wonderfest. This is about, I mean, this is about as low as I like to get as far as having it on hand, so I may have to be sending out an order darn quickly for that. I'm yammering, I'm sorry. So basically, everyone works with Epoxy Sculpt. It's you knead it up, get it up nice and warm and mixed, and then you just push it into the joints. So I probably need to have this closer to what you can see me working on here. I want to make sure that I am gentle with it because I don't want to add a lot of weight and run the risk of it wanting to fall over or start drooping. So I'm wondering if I shouldn't just lay it down and work on it this way. That might be more sensible in the long run. We'll have to see. Yeah, I think that'll be, and I think they can even get that on camera better. So at this point, really all I'm interested in doing is filling in these joints and smoothing those back out. And then I can decide what, if anything, I need to add to it afterwards. But the first step is just joint reinforcement. Okay, hopefully you can see where I've used the Epoxy Sculpt to cover up those ball joints and work this into looking something more organic. I think once it's had a chance to set up for a few hours, I'll go back in with a tool and just scribe in some wrinkles and whatnots. But for right now, it's looking pretty good. Hello everybody, it's Tuesday. I brought both subjects back in on one table today so that I can talk about the healing nature and the valuable thing that is a primer coat, because it unifies all things. You can have a bunch of disparate pieces if you are scratch building, or you can have putty and Bondo and resin and all of those on the same kit, but once you put a coat of primer over it, it unifies everything and makes all things lovely. Now it is a sad fact that I'm learning to face with this Facehugger kit, is that no matter what I do, I'm going to end up supporting this with something, because the nature of this resin, and even though there are metal pins in it, it is not enough. It is going to start drooping. It is never going to hold up its own weight. That's just what is going to happen because of the weight here resting on this coiled up tail. It is never going to stay that way. So I can either cry about it or I can do something, and the only thing I can really do at this point would be to make up some sort of, I've got clear rod, would be to make up some sort of resting pad to put here and support it, so that as it continues its slow decline, that it doesn't go too far. The only other thing I could do would be to cut it off of the tail and do something like this. But I know that even if I do that, then it's gonna, those knuckles and everything are gonna end up dragging down. They're going to end up collapsing under their own weight. It's just not a stable, thing. It's anybody who's built ships of any big size knows that if it's not engineered right, it's going to collapse on itself. And I think that's inevitable for this. I think that's good enough for now, at least while while I'm working on it. I may come up with a better solution for it in the long run. It's hidden cleverly behind itself here, but basically it's just a big old acrylic tube, and if I prop it up like that, it acts as a crutch and holds them in place. Any work is continuing on the travel pod now. I did the first of what I would consider to be many reviewings of the scene from the motion picture, and first thing that jumped out at me is that the shape of the travel pod kit here, the bones of it are right, but there are a lot of details that are just flat out wrong. And I'm going to go check the similar scenes in the other movies where they use the travel pod. I think the end of Search for Spock, when they're getting the new ship, they're all gathered in the travel pod, and I think I'm going to check that to see what the differences are. It has to do with the geometry of the inside. These windows that you see along the top are on a more tilted soffit than this, and also these individual pads don't seem to be here. It's more like one pad that comes up above it. And there's also the difference in the shape of the computers at the back, or the airlock controls, or whatever it is, because that's the first thing that Scotty goes over and touches when Kirk and Scotty enter from the station before they go to the dry dock in the beginning of the motion picture, when they're in the office complex, and Kirk is saying, what, giving Scotty the drill about why aren't the transporters operational and all that. Scotty comes over here and touches a panel on this side, and that closes the airlock doors, and it looked to me from seeing that scene that this airlock, or this control panel, should come up and then dive into the wall like that. It was almost like it went straight in rather than having this corner coming out. So I want to go, that's why I want to check the other movies and see whether or not the source file for this, or the inspiration for this design, comes from any alterations that were done to the set for the later films. Also, I don't recall ever seeing these benches in the first time, so it may have been that the benches were something that was necessitated by having the whole crew in the travel pod, as opposed to just having Scotty and Kirk in there at the beginning. So, I mean, they make a nice addition and they make sense as a, piece of transportation. You'd have a chair in here. The fact that Scotty and Kirk stood the whole time in front of the window, notwithstanding, notwithstanding, the fact that the benches here are a good idea, but whether or not they were canon or not is an issue. So I need to check that. But I'm almost ready to start putting some more paint on the inside here. It's one of those things where I've got to get this inside shell completed before I can even put it in the, before I can even think about closing up the outside shell, because this has to be done. There is precious little room around here for the lighting. There is enough to put a strip light in here to handle all of the lighting that happens out of the front of the ship, or the front of the pod there. But once I know exactly how much room this interior is taking up, now it's sunk down here because it's not sitting on the floor. Once you put the floor piece in and then you sit it on the floor, then this brings it up to the right height where it hits the bottom of that ledge. So I have a slim area here to run these strip lights out. Yeah, we're getting down to it. This is just going to take a lot of filling and sanding and doing some seam work here. Now, anybody that knows what this pod looks like knows or can recognize that these panels here are about twice as thick as they need to be. They were more like painted on panels and less like applied, thick panels to the side of the ship. So that's just the aesthetic of how this model was made, and there's not really any way around it. I could try sanding them down, but then you have the odd raised detail on them, and if you sand that down, then you're getting rid of that raised detail. Okay, here's probably the best reference for that back wall that you're ever going to see, and this is from the director's edition of the motion picture, since it doesn't really, the original version exists on Blu-ray, but the best version with all the color correction and all that is the director's edition, and it has not yet been put on to Blu-ray, so we're using the DVD here, and you can see how that console comes out. There's an angle, and then it kind of goes straight up and dives into the curve of the ceiling. And let me get the kit part. And the kit part kind of does almost the opposite. It has a very thin front here, no angle, and then it goes straight up into what would be the rest of the ceiling. It doesn't cut into that. So I'm wondering whether rebuilding those from scratch wouldn't be a better idea. I don't want to end up rebuilding the entire thing, but okay, and there you can see some corner couches, like little benches here on both sides, but no couch that goes the entire length. And then you see these big, of course this is the tail end of the 70s, so you're going to see some chocolate brown and harvest gold and all of those 70s colors. And really what you're seeing in the ceiling here is, that's what I was talking about, those walls being more cut back at yet another angle, as opposed to going straight up into the ceiling. Even though the whole wall is at an angle, there is yet another angle there. And it goes up into this, what looks to be this padded piece here. Okay, here you start to see a bit of the exterior, and there, this was photographed earlier and then projected into the model. But you can start to see some of the details that are on the kit that are showing up in the model. This dark ring back here, the dark pocket of instruments here, the red light, the inspection line, the red markers. There's a strobe at the top there. And then you see the lights coming out of the back of the ring, or shining through the ring. Here you can see the lit directional thrusters. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to those to light them, only because there's so much build-up resin in those corners that I don't think I'd be able to drill them out. Here you can see in the with the way the lighting has changed to reflect, I guess, more sunlight as they come around the earth and into the area where the dry dock is. That really lights up some of the contours of the walls, and you can see this is more or less a flat padded panel, and then these are there are lines in it, but it's more or less a flat wall. This is again that chocolate brown. This is more of an autumn gold orange color, more of an orange brown, not really an Irwin Allen orange, but an orange brown. The back wall, it could be the way it's lit. I don't know whether I would go with the chocolate brown there. Probably I would go with a medium gray and a gunmetal there to reflect the other airlock doors on the office space station there. Worthy of note here are the three spotlights that you see on the front. These are obviously done the same way the spotlights were done on the Enterprise, with the reflected dental mirrors or inspection mirrors. So to try to duplicate that effect is not going to be all that feasible. But if I can get a simulation of what that front inspection light looks like, I think we'll be ahead of the game. One last shot of the as it's getting ready to dock, of the pod backing up to the Enterprise hull, and you can see the stripes here that need to be painted on. This darker ring, but the inside of the area is more or less as white as the rest of the ship, maybe on the warm side of white, the warm side of the spectrum, but white nonetheless. And there you see there is a highlight on the 05 there that is coming from nowhere. So it's obviously that dental mirror, inspection mirror trick again, but there's no aperture for that light to come out of, same as this one. So you have an inspection light here with none of the louvers in it. You have the front inspection that has the louvers in it. Now, a lot of those louvers, at least on the left hand side, I'm going to have to replace because they did not print well. But you can see overall that these panels here should be much flatter to the hull than what is on the resin kit. and the blinking red lights here. Okay, so it's been a day of little progress, but some. I started getting some color on things, most notably the interior, since obviously the interior has to be done first. I'm putting the browns and the oranges and I'm going with a black on the couch, but going with an orange brown on the inside here, trying to two-tone this up and do the dark brown that's on the ceiling. And I'm also working on the airlock ring. This is the ring that sticks out of the back that would join up with the down here, would join up with the Enterprise, and these little latches would come out and latch on. But how it's meant to be presented is that it fits on the back here, obviously, and this back is painted gray, and there are holes here. Now I get what the modeler was attempting to doing, but he did it in a kind of a clumsy way. This is meant to be a light leak, so that light shines out through whatever lights you put here will shine out through these holes, and then they will get caught up in the gaps of the ring, and that gives you a light here and lights on both sides. Now the part that makes up the ring itself, it just has the gap here. It doesn't have anything in there to fill it, and you as the modeler are expected to scratch build these white panels that would go in here, and the light would shine through the back of this. It actually would shine in through here, which would mean it's coming out of this tiny crack and going into this even tinier space to light that up. And it's ambitious, I'll give them that. I don't know how well it will work. So what I need to do is to first glue in a ring of this, I'm just using sheet styrene, really thin, the thinnest I have, and forming it to this size. And then what I will do is I will glue this in with CA and use that as a backer, and then I'll put a second piece of it in here, which will actually come up to the same outside level as the ring itself. So this is where we're going to end it for today. We've got the inside of the pod, which is a festival of late 70s harvest gold and chocolate brown colors, and we're going to let that set overnight, and then we should be ready to maybe even glue in the side computers or the side controls and the benches tomorrow. Okay, the struggle continues. It's Wednesday. I'm working on the interior of the travel pod, and I gotta tell you, this is the worst stuff I've ever worked with. My use of the gentle phrase is diminishing as the longer I work with this. The structural stability of this of these pieces is cannot be undersold. They warp, they twist, they bend. It's like working with really thin sheet styrene, except for, you know, you can come back to it tomorrow and the sheet styrene will have warped even more. I don't know where to lay the blame, but I know there is blame aplenty. Do I know what I'm doing when I am printing these parts? Not 100%, no. Could these parts have been designed better? Most definitely. Is resin printing the way to go even? Is the technology there? I don't know. Am I using the wrong resin? I don't know. But certainly there are plenty of things that I don't have control over that I could point to and say, yeah, this is bad. This is a flaw. The thinness of these walls of this couch, I have no control over, and it's a flaw. The thinness of these walls. Now, again, I have to go back and stress, and I know this is turning into a hate fest, and I'm sorry, but the original files on this were designed to, I believe, be printed on a filament printer. And I don't know the difference between them as far as the output, whether the filament printed pieces are inherently stronger or more stable than resin printed pieces. So I can't, I can only express my frustration with what I've got, not with what I don't have. But before I write the entire technology off as not mature enough for this type of work, I will download a file of another model that is that has been said to have been designed specifically for resin printing, and we'll see if we can eliminate one problem in the equation. Am I doing the best I can with an inherently flawed model? Even if I had printed it completely perfectly and by the book and by the numbers and everything right, would it have still turned out to be this difficult because of the inherent problems in the model? That's a very good question. I like to think of myself as being able to work with pretty much anything that I'm given to work with. But what I'm given to work with in this instance is not good. And I bear partial responsibility for that because I may not be printing it correctly or to its best advantage. But it is just heartbreakingly difficult to work with when it shouldn't be this hard. No model should be this difficult to work with, and no material should be this difficult to work with. So I think I need to content myself with putting in these benches and the rear computers or rear consoles, and maybe the floor. I can still work the figures in just by, lowering them in through the front window and gluing them down. That's as long as I can get into it from there, then I'm not worried. But if I can get the floor and these furniture in and maybe the back wall in today, that would be a landmark event. But look at that back wall. You can see it's bowed out the other way. It's cupping this way. And it's, it should be a flat. That might be easy enough to recreate in flat sheet stock, but I shouldn't have to scratch build everything just to keep it flat. It's not ideal. Nothing about this kit is ideal, but it's not ideal. What I'm going to have to do is glue the floor in to keep these walls in somewhat of a shape so that I can put the internals in. As you can tell by the disdain in my voice, it's not what I would prefer to do. But we're going to have to wedge a lot of this stuff in and then seam it in place, and then try to go back in and repaint some of it in place. And none of that is how I would prefer to work, but that seems to be the only way we're going to get any sort of satisfaction out of this. Alrighty, the couches are in, and no mean struggle was that to do. Of course, a lot of it needs repainting now because of the amount of handling I had to do to get it in and hold it and clamp it and twist it and make it conform to the wall shape. But those are in, and I need to, like I said, I do need to touch up that paint, but I think before I do that, I'll continue the abuse and put in these consoles in the back. Okay, welcome back to Operation Silk Purse. Get back from lunch and a bit of a break to clear my head. Pick up some more paints. I've just touched up some of the paint on the benches and the consoles, the rear consoles, and the walls on the inside. Trying to wrap my head around this, make myself happy with it before I put in the back wall. Now, as ugly and distorted as this back wall is, believe it or not, it does fit pretty good the ugly and distorted version of the back of it. So it's like, I guess they're all ugly together. What I want to do is paint in the recesses here on the airlock door. I've got a basic gray on this, and I think I want to go with a gunmetal on the inside. It's darker It's actually, no, I don't think I want a gunmetal. I think I want a dark iron on that, because gunmetal might reflect, and it should be a dull or a flat inside there. So I think I'm going to go with the dark iron on the inside. Oops, that's the one I ran out of, and that's why I had to go out and get some more. So let's see what the what that dark iron would look like. Okay, I'm ready to close up and call it a day today. But before I do that, I'm going to take this door that I've just finished painting, and I'm going to apply it to the back of this cabin. Get it all epoxied in place, and call the interior of this a more or less done thing. We'll see how much how much more I need to get to it afterwards, but I think we're in good shape. Okay, so this is where we're going to shut down for tonight. I've got the interior done as much as I'm going to do, with the exception of putting the characters in. I've got the outside, I've got it light blocked. I've got the white in the windows here, or the lights, so that when you do this, you see it from the inside. You see how lit up. This is how it's supposed to. Oops, that's just. Come on, get it in the camera. There you go. By the time you put your lights on the outside here and shine them in, you get the lights on the inside. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. Welcome back. First, a disclaimer about my attitude yesterday. I'm not proud of it. Looking at it this morning, coming back after taking a day away from it, it was stressing me out. I was frustrated. I didn't like it. But coming back to what I'm seeing today, I am reminded of the wise words of Linus in the Charlie Brown Christmas. I never thought it was such a bad little tree. Of course, he was lying. He was just as disdainful of it before he saw it all decorated as everybody else. He was laughing right along at Charlie Brown. But looking back on this today, it's not such a bad little tree. It's not what I was hoping for. It has got some flaws to it that I'm not happy about. But I think I can work with it. And that is the key of all great model building, is the problem solving and trying to make things work. I am mindful of course, this time of year, I pull out my copy of Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds and I listen to it almost on repeat. Not constantly, but I do love that Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. And the character that the narrator finds in the mines towards the end, where or in the old subway system, sorry, not the mines, but the subway system, where he's talking about building a brave new world, and goes on this rant about how lovely it's going to be and how beautiful how we can get back to a normal and all of that kind of stuff. And then the narrator looks, or the journalist, the narrator looks at the hole that he has, the tunnel that he has made, and finds that it's barely 10 feet deep. And then he says this wonderful line about realizing that the gulf between the man's aspirations and the man's ability, that's when it hit him, the gulf between those two things. And this is what I'm struggling with. Building this kit out of these 3D printed parts, the gulf between my expectation of how it was going to go and how it's been turning out is a lot wider than I'm comfortable with. And I believe I've made this point earlier. This is very much like working on the early resin kits of the 80s and 90s, where you had parts that were warped and parts that didn't fit and parts that were maybe not cast right, or parts that had bad glue joints on them, just parts that took a lot of work. And that's what I think was my chief objection or chief frustration with this kit yesterday. And that was, I was expecting these things, you know, if you put it in a box and shake it, I was expecting a Bandai kit. And I don't know if that was a realistic expectation or not, but it was the one that I had. I was expecting these pieces would just slot into each other, everything would come out perfect with symmetry and you know, alignment and all of that, and it's just not the way it is. Now, is that inherent in the nature of printing pieces at all, or is it how this particular model was printed? I don't know that yet. This was not a free model. I have downloaded lots of free things and printed them, and they've come out beautifully. Printing something now that is free that I think I've already seen. I had a couple parts that screwed up. That's why I'm reprinting a couple parts. But the majority of what I printed came out very, very nice. This was a paid model. Wasn't all that expensive. It's like 12 bucks, something like that, 12, 13 bucks. And so I figured, okay, if it's a paid model, then they've put the work in, and these parts are going to print just fine. Well, you don't know that. I don't know that until I know it. So I was presupposing. So, inside is done. You were with me yesterday when I did that. Got the light block, or the light backing material here, so that when we put the lights on it, it will give a nice illuminated window. Now here's where we are today, because I need to see what kind of space I am going to have inside this shell to run my wiring. I already know that I've got a big old problem waiting for me when it comes to this front edge, because the front edge did not print correctly and it broke off. Well, I figured I could scratch build just a little beam to go around there, and I was playing with that yesterday, just some strip styrene to cover that. I think I can do that. And then I haven't really even addressed the elephant in the room, which is going to be the big window. The big window is going to be a treat, but that's a treat for another day. What I've got to make myself happy with is if I put this in place so that you can see what this looks like. How much room do I have? How much room do I have at the top that I can make a box here for a light? And the answer is not much, if any. Now there are, the way this is designed, there are a couple little holes and posts here. There's little slots here and posts sticking out, and I'm gathering that those are supposed to help you orient the inside the outer shell. I don't know how successful those are going to be, because like everything else, they don't quite fit. But if I do that, you can see how much room, hopefully you can see how much room there is up here on these sides for the, well, you know, that just gave me an idea. That just gave me an idea. What would happen if I put the lighting on the inside shell, just like that? If I put the lighting just on the inside and then let it shine, and then I don't have to worry about a light box there. That's worth looking at. That's worth trying something on. Okay, we have success. It's faint, but it's there, which is great, because I'm digging these low powered lights that aren't, like I said, they aren't tanning beds, but look at that. It lights up those windows just fine. Now I need to mess with the positioning of a little bit. I think I need to come a little bit forward, but that certainly saves me the problems of having to build any sort of diffuser box around it. I've been wanting to use up these, you know how you have like the good scissors at home, or you have the good steak knife, or you have the good soldering iron. You don't want to use the regular soldering iron or the good glue gun. These are strip LEDs, but they're not the good ones. I'm not going to use the really good strip LEDs for this. Now This one strip that Elliot sent me, I am going to use for the inspection lights because they're just brilliant. But for as far as the interior lighting, I don't need to use the good LEDs for this. I'll use the everyday LEDs. I won't bring out the fine china. So I think that's going to work just fine for that. I'll do that, and I'll put a little sprig of those in the two rear consoles, and that's going to do us just a treat. Okay, I think we might have turned the corner here. We've got lights in both banks of windows now. They are a little bit too close to the front, but that's where we basically run out of wall space. They get too close to the inner shell, and they're not as diffuse. Okay, good news. I found a Ralph circuit that I am going to be woefully underusing, and I hesitate to even bring it up because it's like having a 4-course meal in front of you and only eating the French fries. But I've got one of Ralph's boards here that I don't even remember how long ago I've got this or why, but it will give me 2 separate blinking circuits, one of which I will use to make these side green and red lights blink, and the other I will use to make the strobe on the top blink. I do need to find a place to tuck this in. I need to find a place where I can lean it up against the wall because there's not a lot of room, and obviously the interior is already spoken for. So I'm going to be running a wire down the pole and out to the base, then running my power to that, so I don't have to worry about changing batteries or anything in here. So pardon me as I drag you down this line of thought. Right now I'm worrying about isolating the work lights up front. If I were going to do this without an interior, and trust me, there were times yesterday when I thought that was what I was going to end up doing, just putting it together without an interior and forgetting about it, this would be the perfect light box for the inspection lights. This whole string right here, this would be perfect for that. What I need to do at this point is cut out the inner circumference of this circle so that I can plop the interior down in and around it. And I think how to do that is I might have to get my old depth gauge out, my feeler gauges out, and transfer some marks from one to the other and see if that's the best way to do that. I really like the way these are. What I'm interested in doing is boxing off this light so that I can confine it. I just realized that ideally I should be doing this in cardboard and not styrene. I should be doing everything in cardboard, get it mocked up that way, and then transfer my measurements to styrene. But I just got started in the heat of the moment and just continued. I am trying to fit this in, and I am seeing that it is still... See, cardboard is going to be easier to do the little trims of. So let me see if I can find something. This bottom part actually went in kind of easily, and it's giving me a bassinet for the child vibe type of thing, rather than the pod that it's supposed to be. I need to clean, I need to go to lunch, I need to do a bunch of things. Let's take a look at... I need to sand this down. I need to just knock a little bit off of that so that when this comes in and sits, it sits down just a little bit, so maybe a 1/16 of an inch or less. But that's really going to help me now because I can start to define the area of the top of this. Now the vents on this side are great, but the vents on this side, not so much. There's at least 4 of them that I want to replace. So what I want to do is cut one of them out, one of the good ones. Cut one of the good ones out and use that to measure off to make up some out of this really thin sheet stock that I've got. It's the right thickness. I just need to cut some of those shapes out and repeat that and replace that, and we can be moving on. Okay, I've just started on the long road to replacing these vents here, these baffles, shutters, however you want to phrase them. I've got one in, but now that I know the size of them and how well they are easy to work with, I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more that I want to replace. Back from lunch, late lunch, it was Bojangles time. Got my tea. I am re-energized. I don't know who made this mess while I was gone. I swear. Okay, let me see. Where did I leave off? I left off. I was excuse me. I was making vents, or fins for the inspection light. So let's carry on with that. Let's see, how many more do I need to make? I need to make 3 more. Okay, we've got one last experiment for the day. I think this, if this works, I will chalk it off as a good day. I've got a strip of lights here. I've got them wired up. I've got all the vents replaced in there. If this works, I will be very, very happy. So we set this down in here. Yeah, that's above that. Okay. And okay, it's very weak now. I'll grant you that that is because this battery is getting weak. So maybe I need to put a new battery on it and try it out again. But what we've got is a string of lights. That's not 100%. No, I don't think that's exactly right putting them there. What happens is that it does not meet that new piece of plastic that I just put in the right way. So I may have to bump that up, and rather than putting it on the front of that, I might need to make a wall that is about yay big. If I put a clear piece of PETG in, yeah, this battery is about had it. If I put a clear piece of PETG in and right behind here, and then frost the bejesus out of it, it should diffuse is the word I was looking for. That's how late in the day it's getting. It should diffuse the lights sufficiently. Okay, that's an amount of light. I like that. Just lit up the main screen in front of Kirk and Scotty there. Now, of course, the camera is blowing it out a bit, but it throws all kinds of nice shadows there and does give a bit of light to the rest of the interior. That might be a pretty good solution. Morning, folks. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and if all goes well today, maybe we will get the pod buttoned up. Wouldn't that be a good step in the right direction? Yesterday when we left off, I was starting to wire up the lighting and starting to get things in position. We've got a bulb now that is underneath this hood right here that is illuminating the inside quite well. This you're seeing is just the light spilling in through these white pieces. Now this morning I have started work on the main area, or the area of the main inspection lights, and I started that by getting this area painted because I need to put the lights in, this LED strip. As soon as I can find it, here it is. I need to put this LED strip in here, so I wanted to get that painted black in around it, and then that will go in like so. That'll go in like so, and then I'll put a frosted piece of the Lexan or the PETG. I don't know exactly what it is. It's this stuff. It's got the green covering on it. It's what I used on the roof of the shuttlecraft. But I want to frost up a piece of that and stick it behind here so that we can diffuse. Well, maybe if we had it on camera. There you go. It's early in the morning, or not early, but it's early for me. But if we stick that in like that and diffuse it, then that'll hide the bulbs. That's really all I'm interested in doing, is making sure the individual bulbs aren't seen. And to do that, though, I need to make sure that this area is correct. And to do that, I need to sand a little bit off of this floor. This was the floor that I built out of Trovasil. And it's a little bit thick. It's a little bit proud of where it needs to be standing. So there's two things I can do. I can either sand down these little blocks here that the floor sits on, which is kind of tough to get a sander down into and to make sure that it's uniform. Or I can take this inside, basically get out a belt sander, sit this down on the belt sander for about 2 seconds, and then pull it back up. And that should take, if I do it nice and evenly, that will take the floor down to where it needs to be. And if I do too much, I can always pad this back up. So this is going to be easier to work with. So I'm going to sand it off, take the thickness off of the bottom of the floor. Then once this is set at the right height, and I know that I can bring it all the way forward that I want, I could even conceivably glue this down, but I don't want to, because I still have to work in a lot of circuitry that is going to make these lights blink here on both sides. I've got the thick board from Ralph here that if I had to, I could keep this entire board off out of the ship and run the power lines up to it on some ribbon cable, because it's thin. The ribbon cable's thin enough. I could run everything out and down into the board and have that be on the outside of the model. That would be a first for me, because I've always been a person who puts the lighting board in the kits, even though I've heard that is not the most effective thing to do in case the board goes bad. But things to think about, because like I said, even though you think you have a lot of room in here, a lot of the room is taken up with being inside the pod, so you don't really have a lot of room. You only have the area, the space between the inner and outer walls. Okay, I've just done some final sanding. I say final because I'm just tired of doing it. And I think we've got a good fit at the front edge there. Now we've got, of course, when the top goes on, I got to put a band in front of that. But if we can get those two edges together like that, and I can get this thing glued in, and I still have room for the strip lights behind it, then we're in good shape. So I think the next step to do is to pop this out, get the strip lights in. See, they still fit. Well, they still fit on that wall. Get these in and wired up, and then get the clear piece pin in. But I've got, since I did all the sanding, I've got another gigundous amount of dust going on in here, so I need to clean this thing out and epoxy some things in place to solidify where they are. Oh, look at the dust. The cloud of resin. Already showered and shaved and feel much better and much more human. I always wait till after. If I'm going to do a bunch of sanding in the morning, I always wait till after that to do my daily cleaning, because I know I'll just end up getting dirty again. So I know that's more detail than you probably ever wanted to know. But I've got the strip lighting going in the front horseshoe here. Strip lighting is in, and it's wired. That's why you see this wire sticking out. I've taken a piece of the PETG, I have sanded it, I have frosted it all up. I'm going to glue it to the inside here of this arc, And hopefully that is going to sufficiently diffuse the LED strip. If not, I'm prepared to pack it full of fiberfill like, you know, I always want to do. So now I'm just going to tack it in place with some CA, and then I'll see if I really need to epoxy it along, because the PETG does not bend as easily as clear styrene. You can't just like do the old ribbon trick where you run a straight edge down it and it curls. This retains its shape. So I'm going to tack it in place in a couple of spots. Again, I'm not worried about it, about the CA hazing the plastic, because at this point hazing would be a nice outcome. So we're going to go ahead and tack that along the top. And I think I need to put a little drop at the bottom here to tack that. And then we'll see if we need to, I'll get the kicker out just in case I need to zotz it with that. Okay, this is a bit of a landmark moment, but we've got our lights in. Dun dun dun. Now they are a bit sourcey and I can see bulbs behind there. The louvers kind of hide them, but they're there. So I'm going to pull out some fiberfill and see if I can improve that any. Okay, well, it certainly cuts it down. It certainly cuts it down to have some fiberfill stuffed in here. I don't know whether this is going to be more trouble than it's worth, but we'll continue. Just doing a little bit of stuffing and poking here. You can write your own punch line there. And a little bit at the end. Now at the back, these two bulbs here, there's a bulb like right directly behind them, and I kind of like how that looks. It looks like there is a designated headlight there, which is fine. It's just some of this stuff where they don't exactly line up with the slats that I want to I'll put this over just as a block to, let's see, that's frustrating thing about this is if it catches on anything, it's going to drag it right out. If it catches on your skin, if it catches on a hangnail, catches on the slightest little bit of snag. Okay, let's just see how she looks when I do this. I do like that. I like that very much, and I think we're going to keep that. Okay, coming along. My question is now whether or not I shouldn't just go ahead and fill this in with epoxy and glue it in place. Can I do all of the other work that I want to do from the top down? No, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what though. This does give me hope for the next 3 or 4 steps that need to get done, and I don't want to jump over top of those just to have a spectacular result here in the morning. So we're going to leave that as it is. Let's see, those louvers are doing just what they're supposed to do. You only see the light from the front. So we're going to leave this. I'm probably going to end up filling in with a JB Weld, something that's a light blocking epoxy. But I can fill that joint in after I have glued this cabin in place. Just out checking the mail, and I got a box from Elliot. Mail call! Box from Elliot, you cheeky son so-and-so. What did you send me today? I'm starting to... I got the hot glue gun warming up right now to attach these strips and get them all glued down so that I can start some final assembly. But Elliot, what did you send me? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What is all of this? It's a circuit board with... Elliot, what the heck? He sent me a whole huge chunk of files here. Some beautiful, beautiful files. Miles of pretty files. Elliot, thank you. I'm going to retire my old files right now. This is a... Holes connect along one way. This is a... Okay. What does it do? Let's put a battery on it, see what it do. not exact. Oh, it's a, there's a pot on it. I can turn the, oh, that's very nice. I can turn the brightness way up. And I can dim this way down. Not 100% sure what these three lights are supposed to do. Man, okay, we've got 5-volt outs. We got some jumper wires. Oh, he wants me to learn how to use a breadboard. That's what this is. He wants me to learn how to use a breadboard. Well, we shall see what we shall see. But look at, oh my goodness. These are beautiful flat files. Yes, sir. Thank you, Elliot. I'm gonna have to make you an official sponsor. You keep this up. Okay, I'm just doing a little bit of cleaning up here because I've made a mess of everything. But look what we've got here. We've got a light hooked up to, or a battery hooked up to the inner cabin. We've got the side lights going on. Now these will shine out through here. We've got the consoles lit up, and then we've got the front console lit up. So the fact that you're able to see what's going on inside there means this light is working. And then you've got the two lights from the back consoles on either side working. So at this point, we are darn close to being ready to attach it to, or to sit it inside here. Now, what we've got going on here is, let me see, let me get some of these wires put together just for show. I've got the, I've got the red and green bulbs ready to go here, and I've got, of course, the front wiring going. I need to extend this wire. I'm talking to myself. You're just here for the ride. Almost ready to sink this down into here. Almost ready for that. Now, if we take this and we attach the battery back to it, and then we sit this over top of it, we get an idea for how things are starting to work. And then you see that that does light up these sides here, which is what the goal of that was. Alrighty, I'm toying with the idea here of putting a light just over the back door here. I don't know whether the lights on the side or the clear panes on the side are also supposed to be lit. I do notice that when the docking sequence ends and Scotty has backed up to the Enterprise and they're ready to park it, that this light comes on. So that one's easy enough to do. I think I'm going to do it. Whether it's worth trying on the sides, I'm not sure, but the top should be easy enough to do. Okay, this will be the last bit of lighting I show off for today, and then I'm just going to start soaking everything in epoxy to glue it all down. But we've got the red bulbs that will do that. We've got the green bulbs that will do that. I've got to make a long, this is one long wire that's going down to the circuit board. I've joined all four of these together because I know they are going to they all go to the same point anyway. So then I need to do another separate bulb that is the white strobe that goes to another point on this board, and then we can send it down the line. And here we go. Here is the reds. There are the greens. And outside of hooking up everything, which I don't even think we can do right now. I know I can't put all the circuits together. Let me see if I can cobble just the main lights and the strip light in. Okay, here we go. Now, none of this is put together with anything more than spit and baling wire and all of that, but there's your lights around the front horseshoe. Of course, I could not run the circuit to make the blinking lights blink, but there will be a strobe at the top. There will be another red light back here that'll be a constant on, so I don't know whether I need to put a red bulb there or just tint the put a white bulb behind it and just tint that panel red. There will be another light up here, and of course all the lights going on in the interior, you can see what's going on there. So good news for all of that. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this rather troubling week. Thanks for sticking through it. I mean, I think we really are around the bend. I think this is going to turn into a nice little kit, all said and done. There were some darkness. There were some dark times yesterday when I didn't think. There were times I was thinking of just pitching the entire interior and just building it as a shell. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I stuck to it. We'll see how it turns out. So until next week, I realized that this was only the first week on this. I thought that, I didn't get a lot done, or this seems to be taking a while. I was like, no, idiot, this is only the first week you've been working on it. It was because I had been printing the week before and cleaning up parts and all that kind of stuff that I had associated with it taking more time than I actually spent on it. I had done this whole thing before. I had done the whole signing off, be good, be careful, I'll do all that. And I realized I hadn't touched hadn't shown the Facehugger all week. Well, since the very beginning of it, because it just seems like it's been forever. So here it is. This is where she stands right now. I just, boom. Just put a couple light coats of green paint and then some ivory paint on it. Starting to play with the coloration on it. But there you go. I don't want to get this close to my face for two reasons. One, it's a freaking Facehugger, and B, it still smells like wet paint. So moving that aside, now I think perhaps I can say be good, be careful, wear your mask, be good to each other, and we'll see you here next week. And I promise I might even show more. Yeah, shut up, you. I might even show more of what I'm doing with the Facehugger. So, see ya.